is the G1 podcast.
이번 역은 서울역, 서울역입니다.
What is up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. This is GP, host, creator, producer, editor, show hustler of the G1 podcast, Korea's #1 expat life podcast. Yes, I am still alive, still doing my thing. And the reason I'm recording right now is to tell you guys why I haven't published as often as I'd like to. I recently transitioned into culture journalism on the radio, so it's really hard to record all day and then go home and record some more. But these are all excuses. I need to get my shit together. So what you're about to hear is something to hold you over until my next big project releases. This was actually made for the radio, my radio show. It's called Korea Escape on TBS EFM, so you can check me out there. I'm on air Tuesdays at 9:30 a.m. generally, and sometimes on Saturdays. But this was produced, recorded by me for the show, and it's about entrepreneurship and startups here in Seoul. Now, not explicitly about expats, a number of the policies that Seoul and the Korean government have in place for startups are quite expat friendly, so I considered it relevant, and what I found was quite enlightening. I hope you enjoy it. Here it is.
Compared to startups 4 years ago in Korea, which is when I got involved with the Korean ecosystem, I think startups back then, they had this impression.
The ultimate goal that we are actually seeking here for our startups is that
we're now here hoping to meet some Korean startups, some Korean new technology, new young dynamic
Korean companies are kind of conservative to buy new product from new startups.
Korean startups.
Wait, hold up. Startups aren't all that new anymore. So what's all the ruckus? Do people know something about startups here in Korea that I don't know? To find out, I grabbed my mic and headed to K Global Startup Engine's demo day. When I arrived, there were over 30 startup companies present, all waiting for their turn to pitch their company.
But as you all know, social media posts disappear down the feed within minutes, just like how water goes down the drain. Wouldn't it be awesome if
we are really focusing on US market, which is $820 million, and then we are trying to focusing on
So we're launching officially next week, so please select us and help us go viral. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go Q&A.
I'm pretty used to hearing about small companies pitching to potential investors, but these startups were pitching to accelerators, which are sort of startup boot camps. What I didn't exactly know was what these facilitating firms had to offer, or why competition was so stiff. So, I approached one of the entrepreneurs who had just completed his pitch and asked him.
Hi, my name is Steve E. My company, Bao, is a software company. We develop software for semiconductor chip designers for low-power designs.
Let's say you get selected by an accelerator. What does that mean for your business?
Basically, it means we have more chance to get exposed to potential investors outside of Korea. So we basically have on their acceleration program, which run from 4 weeks to 12 weeks. And during the time, they discuss with us what investors want to know about our company and how we can make our companies attractive to those investors. And then does not mean they decorate our company. It means they make us to think about the things that's important to investors, not us. So I think we can have a good chance of getting more funds from the investors at the end, and then have more chance to hire more people and then eventually acquire our first paying customers.
There are Korea-based accelerators as well, so I talked to another startup about why they wanted to take it global from the very get-go, and how big a deal getting picked up by an international accelerator would be.
So I'm Haley Kim, and I'm from Taggle. It's basically an upgraded gallery app for people.
So I was thinking, you obviously have a very promising application. I would use it. Why are you looking outward instead of domestically for that kind of help?
It's mainly because our app is not only targeted for Koreans, but this problem is what everyone's experiencing around the world. So we decided to just not restrict the market to Korean, just make it global app.
What does it mean for your company to be chosen? Do you feel like eventually you'll get to your goal anyway, and this is just kind of a shortcut, or is this kind of help absolutely crucial?
This will be absolutely crucial because, accelerators provide not only the funding, but also network, because we are not based in Silicon Valley, but once we get accepted to the accelerator, we'll get to know a lot of people there, just learn about the culture and
Okay, so if you haven't figured it out by now, accelerators are kind of a big deal. Let's hear from one.
Could you tell our listeners who you are and what accelerator you represent?
Sure. So my name is Benjamin Joff. I'm general partner at Hacks. We're a startup accelerator exclusively focused on hardware and IoT.
Why have you decided to send someone, in this case yourself, here to this particular event in Seoul? Is there anything special about Korean startups or this event in particular?
Yes. So earlier this year, we had our first investment in a Korean startup. It's a blood diagnostic smart device, and they came straight out of Korea. They've done an amazing job, so we were very impressed with them. So that kind of got Korea more on our radar, and we decided to pay more attention and see what kind of activity was going on. We learned that there were a lot of new accelerators, pre-accelerators, and government support for IoT startups. And we hope that more of the excellent Korean engineers and designers will step out of the giant conglomerates and venture on their own, and we hope to be able to support them.
Benjamin mentioned government support, which got me curious about the infrastructure responsible for all these talented startups. My research led me to the Seoul Global Center, where Communications Officer Michelle Gang was happy to shed some light on the services they offer their startups. I am here at the Seoul Global Center in Cheongak, and we are in the 6th floor. What do you call this area?
This is our incubation office and then a business lounge.
Okay, so we're talking about startups. What exactly is an incubation office or an incubation center? What does that mean?
There are some foreign entrepreneurs who want to start their businesses here in Seoul, and then we provide all this office space for them. And then at the same time, they can actually work together as they can gather up at this lounge all together. Sometimes they can have meetings with Korean companies. So this is basically for their business.
So it seems like it's a workspace, and do you guys provide it free of charge, or how do you get into it? Does it cost them money? What's up with that?
Okay, so we recruit incubation companies twice a year, and then they have to go through all these documents, screening procedures. But then once you're in, you can get this office for free, and then we provide one-on-one business coaching and then mentoring, or you can have this opportunity to network with other entrepreneurs or startups and then Korean companies.
So kind of sounds like a mini accelerator almost.
Yeah, I think you can say that.
For our listeners that might be thinking about doing their own startup or have their own startup, is it really difficult, is it really competitive to get into this program?
Out of 2, only 1 person can get this office. So far, we are actually recruiting incubation companies for our next year program, but then we're expecting probably 30 or 40 individuals who would like to apply for this program.
Then let me ask you another question. What is the objective of this incubation program? Is there one, how do you measure success?
If you haven't had your business registered yet, then we try to help them to do that. And then after 6 months, they can actually extend their contract for another 6 months. So max, they can stay here for 1 year. And the ultimate goal that we are actually seeking here for our startups is that they can create some jobs where Koreans and foreigners can work. And if they can make some profits, that would eventually help the Seoul economy as well.
Okay, cool. So it's a very long-term gain then.
I think so.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you.
On my way out of the spacious, almost study room-like atmosphere of the incubator lounge, I was lucky enough to catch one of the entrepreneurs as she started her workday.
Hi, my name is Marie Frenette, and my startup is called LaunchSome, and we help Korean companies venturing overseas. We're heavily into social media and that kind of thing. Also, I'm doing a Korea subscription box. Every month, we send Korea-related products to people overseas in all different countries.
Beyond just being a physical workspace, are there any other resources that are made available to you here now that you've gotten into the program?
Oh, yeah. For example, at the front desk here, we have Uni and other people who are always there to help us. So if we ever, need to ask questions about kind of things related to our business, especially people who can't speak Korean and maybe can't look things up themselves. They're always willing to help. And then upstairs, they have actually, I think it's twice a week, they have a lawyer who comes in, they have an accountant that comes in, and then there's Hong Seok, who's always up there waiting to help people with their businesses, to consult them on their businesses. And then, there's fairs, for example. They invite people from the public and the government and organizations to come and see our startups and what we're doing. They give us tons of opportunities to network with each other and with other startups as well. Even right behind me, there's, I think it's $5,000 worth of books. They're really, really useful resources about business and marketing and all kinds of stuff. So
I can kind of tell in your tone, but for our listeners, do you feel like it really means a lot to be a part of this program as a startup, especially in a foreign country, or do you feel like you would eventually get to where you're going anyway without this help?
Being an entrepreneur is just lonely, really, and especially if you're in a foreign country. I do speak Korean, but that doesn't mean that I'm perfect. It doesn't mean that, I understand everything all the time. And so being in a space with other people who have a similar mind to me, a similar mind as me, and similar ambitions as me, and then being surrounded by people who are there just to support us and help us succeed, it's incredible. It's like being on, like entrepreneurial steroids or something like that, really. So yeah, of course I could do the same stuff at home. I could be begging my friends, hey, can you help me find this? Can you come with me to do this? But it would probably take me, an additional year or something to get all that stuff together. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Entrepreneurial steroids, Marie says. Sounds almost too good to be true, yet here are all these foreign startups, a few of which I even recognized from their social media. I managed to speak to a few other players in the Korean startup environment and found out that the government even goes as far as offering a significant grant to startups that they think have serious potential for growth. I had my doubts, but I managed to track down one of these seed money recipients to ask him about this offer and whether or not it was actually too good to be true.
I'm sitting here with the founder of a startup. Why don't you tell us your name and a little bit about your startup?
I'm Jason, co-founder of Memoirs. We call ourselves the world's archive of stories, and our main service is to create stories on your behalf.
Okay, excellent. So my Memoirs, as I have been informed, has received some government funding, a little bit of seed money. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you tell our listeners how it is that you were able to procure that seed money?
In Korea, one of the advantages we have over other countries is that the government provides a grant that allows startups like myself to get pretty much a head start. And we got it in end of 2014, and the process took about 3-4 months. In my batch, we had 4,800 people apply, and 600 were chosen. And we got about, in US dollars, we got about $32,000 worth of seed fund.
That's a ton of money. That's really meaningful. Are there any strings attached? Usually when you get an amount of seed money, especially from an accelerator, they trade it for equity in your business. Was there anything like that from the government?
The way it works is that the government gives you about 70% of the entire budget. Our entire budget was about 50K, between 45, 50K. And then ourselves, the entrepreneurs, we have to give pretty much kind of like a key money per se, about 10%. And we're supposed to give 20%, quote unquote, in sweat equity. So about 30% from our personal funds, our blood and sweat. And then the government provides the rest of 70%, which was about 32K. There are other startups. So, each startup has a different kind of industry. Other industries such as manufacturing, they could get up to about 100K.
I'm sure you were responsible for making an expenditure plan. How does the government hold you accountable for their money, essentially?
So you could think of the government program as kind of your daddy's, your mommy's credit card. So for every transaction you make, you have to have the paperwork for it. So for example, if I'm going to buy a computer, I have to get a receipt saying that I bought a computer. And that's how it works. And they don't let you spend all the money all at once. Duration is about 8 to 10 months, depending on which one you get into. So you have to spend at maximum 50% in the first half, and you have to spend the rest in the last half. If you don't spend any of it, then you have to return the money. So you have to spend it.
Do you think that the oversight works well in general, or do you see flaws in it?
There's both. You're getting seed funding from the government, which is, I think, a big head start compared to other people. At the same time, because it's kind of new, there's a lot of flaws to it too. Like I mentioned, you cannot have paperwork for pretty much everything. That's kind of tough to do.
I've heard that there are people out there who have tried to game the system. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Most of the startups, they follow the system. They finish the program pretty well, and they make big things happen. There's always that few that kind of take advantage of the system. To get into this program, they only allow companies that are under, I believe, 3 years. So they have to be pretty new. Most of these companies start out when they propose to the government, they only have an idea. So if you have a great idea, the government will invest. There are a few people, I guess a few startups that took advantage of this, because if you have a great idea, if you're really good at making the business proposal and presenting it, you have a good chance of getting that money. And it doesn't say anything about limitations. You could have multiple startups in different batches, just use different name or something like that. So yeah, there are a few that actually took advantage of this, and they are using the money for whatever they want to do.
What kind of return on investment is there? What benefits are there for the government to do this?
One of the biggest problems in Korea at the moment is youth employment, especially people who just graduated from college. With having these startups being able to hire people with the seed money they have, it allows people to kind of find jobs, especially if you can't work for a large company. So this is kind of the return, I guess, quote unquote return that they have from the government's perspective, is that you get people to get employed, people to develop skills, and later on they could use these skills to create something else. Second is, since Korea is pretty much owned by the chobols, if we have these startups, even just one or two that actually succeed, this can really help the morale, the community, and then just create a new industry to make Korea more relevant too. So that's the reason why the government's kind of pushing this program as well.
While I'm certain that there are other factors that have come to shape Korea's startup scene, I'm glad to hear that creating jobs and evening out income disparities is amongst them. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this, check out my previous episode, Sex in Korea, and like the Facebook page and subscribe to be notified of upcoming episodes. I've got some big things planned for 2016. Until then, this is GP for the G1 Podcast.